Hello there. Welcome into a Thursday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, online, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. Week 15 kicks off tonight with LA and San Francisco, and you know what that means. It's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs with craveable wings, ice cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world famous Hooters girls. It is the number one franchise in the league. Tonight, catch the fan filler 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you from now until when LA and San Francisco gets going at 5:30, and I would love to get your thoughts on this Thursday. 719-247-1313. We start today with the big news out of the Denver Broncos as they get ready to play one of the most significant games they have had in many a year. They have conducted a piece of business, and that is to extend left tackle Garrett Bolles into the next 4 years. The deal, as reported by Mike Kliss, Ian Rappaport, and many others, 4 years, $82 million. It will make him the sixth highest paid tackle in the league. For someone who is getting ready to hit the open market. And you know what happens when you go on the open market? If you're arguably the best at what you do in terms of available free agents, you tend to top the previous record holder for the highest contract. That was what the Denver Broncos would have risked if Garrett Bolles hit the open market. Now, I'm not guaranteeing he would have set the record for the highest contract, but that would be his initial demand, right? Because that's what pretty much all players try and do, is get the most money possible. So the fact that the Denver Broncos get him and he's only going to be sixth highest paid, pretty good deal. And I think Garrett Bolles, you know, his career is very interesting because he comes in and he was an older prospect, but he was also at the same time more raw than I think Ryan Ramczyk was in his class, well-regarded left tackle as well. So he's older, but a little bit more raw. And for years, Garrett Bolles was almost a running joke among Broncos fans. Right? The amount of holding calls that he had. And he, for the first, 3 years? Heck, 4 years of his career, it looked like there's no way this guy's coming back. He was heading towards another John Elway first round swing and a miss. And he's certainly had many of those over the course of his time as general manager. And Garrett Bolles looked like another one. And then something happened. And I think it was the combination of two things. I think, one, it was his fifth-year option not being picked up. The idea that he was facing his own mortality with the Denver Broncos. But also Mike Munchak coming in as the Broncos offensive line coach. In many people's minds, the best at what he does, Mike Munchak. And you get a player that is as motivated as he's ever going to be in his career. You're no more motivated than when it comes time to get paid and time to secure your employment for the next however many years. So what you had was the most eager of pupils with perhaps the best teacher he could have been paired with. And that last year, before he was extended the first time, we saw the finest football of Garrett Bolles' career. Then he gets his extension, and he remains a Denver Bronco. Fast forward a few years later, here comes Sean Payton. And Sean Payton's job, first and foremost, is to evaluate the players that the Broncos have under contract and decide whether they are, quote unquote, his players. Can he win with them? Are they the type of players he wants? And we've seen many of them go by the wayside in the last couple of years. Garrett Bolles stuck around, but still questions of whether Garrett Bolles was going to fit in with this newly made offensive line. Right? A few years ago, they bring in Quinn Meinerz. That's somebody that Sean Payton decided, yeah, I'm good with that guy. They extended him, but he brings in Mike McGlinchey, brings in Ben Powers. George Payton brings in Luke Wattenberg. And I think this year, Sean Payton was evaluating. Garrett Bolles made the first couple of initial cuts, right? First offseason where Sean Payton takes over, a few guys are gone. Second offseason, we see the big purge, right? No Jerry Jeudy, no Justin Simmons, Russell Wilson. But Garrett Bolles sticks around, but without an extension. They choose to extend Quinn Meinerz first. Not a big coincidence, guy. I'm not. I think that was intentional. Not necessarily to send a message to Garrett Bolles, but just Sean Payton identifying, yeah, Quinn Meinerz, I like what he does. I think that he could be an integral part of the offensive line I want to build. Garrett Bolles, we'll see. And I made this comparison before. The Broncos offensive line is much like the Nuggets starting five, which is why I had the reaction I did when they let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope go. I understood why they extended and maxed out Michael Porter Jr. when a lot of other people said in no way, shape, or form does he deserve that kind of extension. I said it's about the collective. It's about what they do together. It's the same thing with the Broncos offensive line. And Sean Payton wanted to see how Garrett Bolles fit into that, how they worked with a quarterback that fit what Sean Payton wants to do a little bit more than Russell Wilson did. And Garrett Bolles, you look at the results, kind of seems like he fits in, doesn't it? The Denver Broncos right now have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And it's been not talked about probably nearly as much as it should be, as is the life of an offensive lineman. You're never talked about as much as you probably should be, given how important you are. But we fawn over Bo Nix and we marvel at what he's been able to do as a rookie. Well, the five guys in front of him are a big reason why he's been able to do what he's done. And so it makes all the sense in the world that the Denver Broncos would want to re-sign Garrett Bolles. But let's also give Garrett Bolles credit here, not just for the way he's played, but let's give him credit for not wanting to go on the open market. He's 4 games away from entering the free agent market in a much different place than he would have been the last time he was eligible for an extension. Right? Last time he was eligible for an extension, he was a first-round bust. Now he's playing one of the most important positions on one of the best offensive lines in football. He's a month away, 4 games away, or 5, given the Broncos more than likely extending their season beyond Week 18. And he could have said, you know what? I like it here. Not anything against the Broncos, but hey, look at everything that I've done and what I've turned myself into. You're not going to sign me in the offseason when normally these kind of deals get done. And now I'm a month away. And according to Mike Kliss, they went to the bargaining table after Monday's game. That's when they sat down and ironed this thing out. So maybe he got an inkling that they were interested. Maybe somebody said something, but they didn't actually start negotiating till after the Monday night game against Cleveland. Garrett Bolles would be well within his right, and anybody could look at that situation and say, well, of course he opted for free agency. But yet he chose not to. And now he's not breaking the bank. Again, I don't know what Garrett Bolles would have made on the market. Probably more than $82 million. Right? Whether that's $1 million more, $10 million more. If you sign an extension, there's no supermax type thing going on in the NFL where you're capped out at this. At a certain number. Garrett Bolles was going to make whatever the market would bear. And by signing before he hits free agency, the only number that he can hear is coming from the Denver Broncos. So he would be well within his right to go to free agency, to see what is out there, even if he wants to go back to Denver. But for him to sign this deal this close to the end of the season, this close to being a free agent, I think Garrett Bolles deserves a lot of credit here for, or at least acknowledgement of Garrett Bolles' commitment to the Denver Broncos and loyalty to the Denver Broncos. And this is a guy, whenever I think of the quarterback carousel that the Broncos have gone through in recent years, I think of Garrett Bolles first and foremost, because he is somebody that has worn his heart on his sleeve this entire time. Right? And yet, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter how poorly they played, Garrett Bolles was also their biggest advocate. And it's a difficult balancing act. Like Garrett Bolles showing the emotion that you're feeling as a Broncos fan, like, my goodness, here's another one, and he's probably not going to be the guy. Like Garrett Bolles wore that, but at the same time, he was able to also say, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure this guy's the guy. Even in the back of his mind, he might have known that they weren't going to be. So the transformation that he has made as a player, what he has been as a spokesperson of sorts for the team, a link to a time with Sean Payton turning over so much of the roster, one of the few links to many of the past few years for the Denver Broncos, for him to say, yeah, no, I don't need to be a free agent. I want to stay here, and I want to do this now. Before they even played another game. Garrett Bolles deserves acknowledgement on that. In addition to the acknowledgement of, wow, look how far this guy has come from what he was the first few years of his career. You'll hear from Garrett Bowles in a little bit. He spoke on his contract extension. So now that that's done, you notice the offensive line for the Denver Broncos pretty set for now. Now they don't have to look at the offensive line. They can look for depth, and they will. But that's set. So now what does that say about the offseason ahead for Sean Payton and company? We'll get into that as well. 719-247-1313 if you would like to weigh in on Garrett Bowles' extension. Coming up next, Mackenzie Blackwood met the Avs media. No, he will not be playing tonight. It will be still Scott Wedgwood, but Mackenzie Blackwood spoke, and boy, did he already endear himself to Avs fans right off the bat. So you will have to wait for the debut of Mackenzie Blackwood for the Colorado Avalanche while he is in Denver with the team. Scott Wedgwood will get the start tonight, which, no reason for Jared Bednar to completely go away from the way he's been handling the goaltending position over the last few weeks. He has said whatever goalie gives them the best chance to win that night, and given the way Wedgwood played on the trip and the fact that Mackenzie Blackwood is just getting there and coming off of an illness, as disappointing as it may be to some Avs fans who are going to go to the game tonight to see the Avs' new goalie, well, you'll still be able to get to see the Avs' new goalie, just not the newer goalie. So Scott Wedgwood will start tonight against Utah. But Mackenzie Blackwood did meet the media earlier today, and one thing right off the top that I noticed, dude knows how to play to a crowd.
Hey, really excited because this is a really good hockey club, a lot of great players, great organization. It's first class all the way, so that's huge. And, this was my favorite team growing up, so, a little nostalgia there for me too, so very cool.
Look at that. Mackenzie Blackwood grew up an Avs fan. Wouldn't you know it? Says his favorite player. What would you think? Patrick Waugh? It's not. It's Joe Sakic. Now, that feels pandering. And even he, when he said that, gave like a little, just kind of did this hand gesture thing where he's like, I'm acutely aware of the fact that now I get to work for Joe Sakic. I don't think, all joking aside, I don't think he's pandering, because think of how old Mackenzie Blackwood is. And we're all shaped in our childhood as far as the teams we gravitate towards. Like maybe we grow up in a household that's a fan of one team. And I'm a great example of that, much to my late father's dismay, that I found my own path when it came to my NFL fandom and did not follow what was set forth for me. But if you're Mackenzie Blackwood and you're, approaching 30 years old, whatever he is, and you're thinking about when you're a youngster and trying to pick a team, I mean, the Avs, there was a time, I think Matt Duchene grew up an Avs fan. Like there was a run there that I think even Gabriel Landeskog. And I know every time you hear it, it sounds like they're pandering, but I think there's photographic evidence. These players of a certain age, like the Avs were the team. So that's good. Although it would be nice if this was the case, that will not be an indicator of how successful Mackenzie Blackwood will be in Colorado. Because I'm pretty sure he played just as hard for the Sharks, and he probably hated the Sharks. Right? Think of all the playoff tussles that the Sharks and the Avs went through in the late 90s, early 2000s. He probably hated the Sharks growing up. They played hard for him anyway. I don't think that because he was a fan of the Avs is going to make him play any better. But it's a nice thing to know. Here is Mackenzie Blackwood on why him coming to the Avalanche right now is perhaps perfect timing.
I feel like my game's at a good point right now. I struggled a couple years ago with injuries and, kind of been on the mend the last 2 years, been able to put together a good year and a half of hockey. And I feel like I'm, starting to get better and better as time goes. So I feel like I'm kind of hitting my stride. And, I think that's what this team needs. And, I'm excited to try and bring some solid goaltending.
As much as I've talked about this acquisition over the last couple of days, that comment made me think, Mackenzie Blackwood is not that much different than this front office, and I'll put Sakic and McFarland in the same group here. I know one has his hands on the steering wheel and the other one doesn't anymore. But the Avs modus operandi as it pertains to goaltenders over the years, Mackenzie Blackwood kind of fits right in. The Avs have not gone after, I really think, since even Varlamov, wasn't he a backup? All these Avs goalies that they've brought in over the years, I think really Darcy Kemper was the only one who had a large body of work as a starter. Like with Darcy Kemper, you kind of knew what he was. But even then, Darcy Kemper was playing in Arizona. So he was a little bit like Mackenzie Blackwood in that you looked at what Darcy Kemper's numbers were and you're saying, okay, he was this there, but with our team, he's capable of this. And that's what we're doing with Mackenzie Blackwood. We see a guy that's faced the fifth most shots of any goalie in the league, yet he has a save percentage above at 91. Right, where the baseline for solid goaltending is a 900 save percentage. His is 910. His goals allowed average is respectable at 3 a game. But again, you're going from a team where you had to face the 5th most shots to the 25th most shots, which is what Georgiev faced this year. And you can project and say, okay, this is what he was in San Jose, but we're so much better than San Jose. That's the extrapolation. That's the projection that Chris McFarland is making. Playing behind Taves and Makar for a good chunk of the game, that's going to help. Make solid numbers even better. If Mackenzie Blackwood puts up the same numbers in Colorado that he did San Jose, you take that. Absolutely. 3 goals allowed a game, stopping 91% of the shots he faced. That's all the Avs need, but it's reasonable to think that he could be capable of more. Now the 91% of the shots he stops are a smaller number. Now that causes the goals allowed average to go down a little bit. But all of these goalies for the Avs, they've always bet on projection. Right? If you're not going to go out and spend top dollar or give up the best assets in order to acquire a goalie, which the Avs have not done, you have to find guys in situations where you feel like we're going to give him a bigger role and he can flourish in that. Philip Grubauer was a backup. Darcy Kemper was playing for a bad hockey team. Alexander Georgiev was a backup. Mackenzie Blackwood kind of has a combination of all of them, right? He's a starter, but he's playing for a bad team. And also he hasn't, he's started to pop a little bit and become this attractive goaltending candidate for contending teams. So the Avs have always gone this route of projection. They're not going out in bidding I'm thinking of like Sergei Bobrovsky. Right? They didn't go out there and bid top dollar, top of market for him, an established, very good goaltender. All of these goalies they have brought in over the years, there's been a bet that you're going to look at their numbers and you're going to say, you're not going to be wowed by the numbers. Either because they haven't started as much or just the numbers themselves, you're going to go, But on the Avs, do they have a chance to be better? And where it ended up with Philip Grubauer, where it ended up with Darcy Kemper and Alexander Georgiev, I know is all different, but all three of those guys at times showed that the Avs made the right call. Like Philip Grubauer stepping onto the Avs was a better goalie than he was in Washington. And they said, we can replicate that with Darcy Kemper, who is a better goalie with Colorado in that Stanley Cup run than he was in Arizona. And they said we could do it again with Alexander Georgiev, who in some ways was better in Colorado than he was New York. But then, I mean, you know the rest of the story. I don't have to retell what has happened to Alexander Georgiev. But it's all worked to some degree with all of these guys. How long? The difference with Georgiev is we didn't see it came to an end earlier. Right? Grubauer was a free agent. Darcy Kemper was a free agent. Georgiev was set to become a free agent. Didn't quite make it there. And now there are already discussions of whether Mackenzie Blackwood's going to be extended. And Jared Bednar even hinted that they're going to try to. Going to try to extend him. But Mackenzie Blackwood very much fits the Avalanche's thinking when it comes to goalie. They have so many high-level skill players that you have to find other places where you can save. And they have chosen goalie. And they're not alone in that. Many teams have done that. So Mackenzie Blackwood is the latest. And a lot of the excitement that Avs fans and people who cover the Avs have is based on projection. Because there's not enough to go on right now. Mackenzie Blackwood doesn't have an established year in and year out reputation of what he is in the NHL. But to his point, he's playing better hockey right now. His numbers you look at and you say they can be better with the Avs. And Mackenzie Blackwood, acutely aware of what the Avs desired when they acquired him, and he explains what that consistency in goal means to him.
You're not going to have, those spectacular nights every single night, but as long as you're bringing a B game at the worst, right? So you can win with a B game if your B game is good enough, right? So I think that's what I've been working on a lot over the last little bit. You're obviously going to have your great nights, and those are fantastic. But when you're not your best, like, what do you still have? So if you're on an off night and you can still get the job done, that's kind of what you're looking for, right?
What is Mackenzie Blackwood's floor? In a weird way, that's really what's more important right now. We always gravitate towards what his ceiling is. How good can Mackenzie Blackwood be? Really, the question that we should be asking ourselves is, how bad is Mackenzie Blackwood's bad? And that's not because you're negative or pessimistic. It's because that floor, where that floor is and how it varied from game to game, was what the Avalanche just couldn't deal with anymore with Georgiev. It wasn't about how good Georgiev could be. It was about how bad he was. So it's kind of the same thing with Mackenzie Blackwood. Really, what matters here is that when he's not at his best, what is he? That's what the Avs are trying to fix. Some nights it was a D, sometimes it was an F. Many times it was a C. Sometimes it was a B plus, the floor for Alexander Georgiev. If Mackenzie Blackwood is not on top of his game, if he's not standing on his head, there will be a time to wonder about how good, and I think it's playoff time because we did the same with Darcy Kemper. We knew what Darcy Kemper's floor was. We got that. He was pretty consistent. What we were all asking is, could he step up his game? Right? Could he go to another level? It's almost the reverse now. It's more important to figure out what the floor is with Mackenzie Blackwood than the ceiling. But there will be a time where his ceiling will matter. Right now, it's his floor. And he understands that at worst, he's got to be a B. And that's what he's going to strive to be. At least that. And if the Avs get at least that, which I would say 91% save percentage and a 3 goals allowed average is about B quality work. They get that, the Avs will be just fine. Avalanche, Utah Hockey Club tonight, 7 o'clock. Scott Wedgwood will get the start this evening, perhaps against Nashville, is when we will see Mackenzie Blackwood for the first time. 719-247-1313 is the number. Coming up next, Bo Nix back from the bye week. How locked in is this team and why Bo Nix called the Indianapolis Colts annoying? It's the most wonderful time of the year, and we want to make it even better with $1,000 towards your winter wish list. Use it for holiday shopping, holiday travel, or a treat for yourself this holiday. Enter this national contest on extrasports1300.com for a chance to fulfill your winter wish list, sponsored locally by Downtown Colorado Springs and Downtown CS.com. You'll hear more from Garrett Bolles as he signs a 4-year, $82 million extension with the Denver Broncos. Hear from him at the top of the hour. But in the meantime, more on the task at hand this weekend. You know the stakes. Broncos all but clinch a playoff spot with a win against the Colts and a loss by the Miami Dolphins in Houston. Both very possible. Bo Nix, coming out of the bye week, says that his team is excited and there's not much need to pump them up.
Everybody's into it. Everybody's excited to make this run here the last 4 games of the regular season. And, I think that's a good sign of a good team when you got that edge to you. You don't really need, guys telling you to lock in. You just kind of have that mindset, very mature and focused and competitive team right now.
Well, it helps when you have something to play for. Right? There's an alternate universe where I would like to get Bo Nix's comments if this season was not going down this path about the Broncos coming out of such a late bye week. And that was the thing about getting the bye week so late, right? You want to use the bye week as a weapon, right? Either want it before a very important game or you want it in a good spot of the season. So maybe you're banged up or it allows you to refocus. And you see the Broncos schedule come out and they get a bye week so late and you're wondering, well, what's going to be at stake at that point, given that they were going to put their fate in the hands of a rookie quarterback. But now I can't find a single reason why this isn't the absolute perfect time, even down to the opponent. Right? They get a bye week going into this game against a team that they just so happen to be leading in the wild card. Like Broncos are 7, Colts are 8. And then you throw on top of it how I thought that this team started to get away from their identity a little bit against Cleveland. They're a little fortunate to have won that game. I mean, everything about this bye week says it's perfect. They got the best bye week they could possibly get. But there is an alternate universe where the Broncos have their record flipped the other way, and then I want to hear that the team's locked in. Right? Are they locked in then? Again, it's an alternate universe that we'll never visit. Because we're in this one and the Broncos are playing for everything right now. But if the Broncos didn't come back out of the bye week locked in, engaged, excited, then there would be a big problem. Here's Bo Nix on the Indianapolis Colts defense and the problems that they present.
They mix it up enough, to try to confuse the team, but they're good at what they do. They're going to keep things in front of them. They're going to, make it a mess up front. Their guys play hard. They're kind of everywhere. It's annoying, but that's, part of the reason they're good.
I like that from Bo Nix. I don't know that I've heard too many coaches or players describe their opponent as annoying. And calling them annoying while meaning it as a compliment. And that's the way that Bo Nix meant it. They're annoying in a good way. To his point, this is a Colts team in the top half of the league in interceptions. right? And a good way to get interceptions is not letting guys get past you. So the Colts do a good job of keeping everything in front of them. While they aren't one of the best teams when it comes to actually sacking quarterbacks, they are one of the better teams when it comes to hurrying quarterbacks. They do generate pressure, but they're not able to fully get home on those pressures, which should actually help Denver's chances, because we've seen when Bo Nix gets hurried, Bo Nix can use his legs to make sure those hurries, those pressures do not turn into sacks. And if he has shown throughout the season as well, if he's hurried, he's not going to be hurried into making an awful decision. That's essentially what the Colts game plan is and will be on Sunday. Because it's their game plan against every quarterback and every team. Create pressure, get them to make a bad throw, and we'll pick it off. That's what they bank on. But you look at Bo Nix in totality this season, that's not really his what he does. In fact, there are more bad throws from Bo Nix, questionable throws. There are more interceptions from Bo Nix when he doesn't have pressure. Right? That play down the field that Sean Payton said was his fault. He made a bad play call. Like, Bo Nix had time. Just a bad throw. Bo Nix's whole identity is that he doesn't put the ball in harm's way when he's pressured. He puts the ball in harm's way when he's not pressured. When he's pressured, when he's being hurried, when he's being, when he's needing to make a decision, that's when that part of his brain kicks in where Sean Payton's like, he can hear Sean Payton yelling at him to not put the ball in harm's way. Many more of Bo Nix's bad. You could go back and look. I would say just as many bad throws from Bo Nix have been when he's had virtually no pressure than when he's been under constant pressure. Bo Nix's mistakes come from a bad read or perhaps feeling himself a little bit too much. I actually like Bo Nix when the alarm clock is going off in his head and he's got to get rid of the football, because he doesn't usually put it in harm's way. But that'll be the Colts' game plan. They'll be able to generate some pressure. Obviously, Garrett Bolles and the offensive line are going to play a big role in whether Bo Nix actually does get pressured. But they want to pressure you, they want to hurry you, and they want you to make bad decisions with the football. They keep everything in front of them, and that's what allows them to pick the ball off. I actually think this is an advantageous. I think this matchup with the Colts is more advantageous for the Broncos offense than it is the defense. Because on the offensive side, you have not only Jonathan Taylor, but you also have Anthony Richardson, who you have to worry about running. And this season, the Broncos have had some trouble with the run defense when the team they're facing has a good running back and also a quarterback that can use his legs. Indianapolis has that. Now, Anthony Richardson can make some awful decisions with the football. The Colts offensive line, which was hailed as one of the best not that long ago, does give up a lot of pressure. So it's not as simple to say Broncos offense versus Colts defense, advantage Broncos offense. And the same is on the flip side, that the Colts offense has the advantage over the Broncos defense. I like the Broncos matchup against Indy in all three phases. But the more decided advantage, the matchup that I feel like plays even more to the Broncos' strengths, is when their offense is on the field and the Colts defense is out there. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Broncos Colts. Coming up next, you'll hear quite a bit, actually, from Garrett Bolles. Some good questions asked of him on his journey. You know, he's one of the few remaining survivors, right? Survivors of the dark days of the Denver Broncos, survivors of the Peyton Purge. He's come through it. So his perspective on all of this, I found when I was listening to it to be very interesting. I think you will as well. You will hear from the new $82 million man coming up next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome into a Thursday edition of Drive Time Sports, which actually is very reminiscent of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday editions of the show. No matter what day it is, you can always watch the show live on a daily basis through our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, X, Instagram, or YouTube. So many these days that make hard to keep track. At XTRA Sports 1300. Give us a follow while you're there, and you can watch the show live on a daily basis. The news of the day: Garrett Bolles will be a Denver Bronco for the next 4 years as he signs an $82 million extension. Just about a month away from entering free agency. Garrett Bolles met with the media today, and I wanted to bring you some of this audio because the perspective of a guy on the career arc, who has had the career arc Garrett Bolles has had, but also has been a part of so many bad Broncos teams and is now on a good one and is going to remain on a team that we think is going to be good for years to come. I think it's valuable and interesting insight. So here is Garrett Bolles from just a little while ago. like that last part. It takes a little while for people to fall in love with me, and I think that fits. Certainly, it took Broncos country quite a while to fall in love with Garrett Bolles. But it just goes back to what I started the show with. I think Sean Payton was kind of on the fence about him. I think that actually there's another player as we spin this forward a little bit. The next guy of significance that you're going to see stay in Denver on an extension, it's going to be Courtland Sutton. I think both of these guys, who certainly harken back to a not so distant past when the Broncos were down pretty bad. And we were guys that, especially Courtland Sutton, that Broncos fans felt like he's really good, but you didn't know because the rest of the team wasn't that great. And I think this year has been fascinating for as much as we fixate on Bo Nix. Seeing Courtland Sutton and Garrett Bolles this year and what roles they have played in the Broncos' success, I think has been interesting to watch. I think that both guys, Sean Payton was on the fence about. You think Courtland Sutton had to restructure his contract, which would make it easier for the Broncos to get out of it. Garrett Bolles was set to become a free agent after the season was over. I think Sean Payton was on the fence about both of them. And Garrett Bolles, there in his comments, acknowledged, like, I had to change some things. But once I did, I became a really good fit for what Sean Payton wants to do. I think Courtland Sutton the same way. I don't want to say that Sean Payton could take him or leave him, but it was kind of like that. I mean, I'll keep him around for now. Like, there are other positions, quarterback, safety, that I want to get addressed, and I want to turn over the personnel at those position groups first. But I mean, even he's done it with the wide receivers, I guess, to an extent, turned over that position group. But going into the year, I felt better about Garrett Bolles' future with the Denver Broncos than I did Courtland Sutton. But both of them, I think Sean Payton wanted to see another year. And that's a credit to them to a degree, because Sean Payton has shown that he'll move on. He will not hesitate to move on from guys. He saw enough there to at least say, let's give it another year. But I think he came into the year fully expecting that, hey, if they're not what I need them to be, I'll go out and find somebody else. I think they both have played their way into Garrett Bolles, obviously, but I think Courtland Sutton will be next. Being Broncos for this climb, this continued climb of the Broncos organization into relevancy and into the postseason, and they hope into real contention for a division, for more than that moving forward. But we see in just a couple of years, Sean Payton really implement his vision for this. And it looks a lot the same way that it did in New Orleans. Right? Bo Nix isn't a carbon copy of Drew Brees. They come from very different places. And I've talked about it before. Drew Brees was already established as a very talented quarterback. It was just health on why he ended up in New Orleans. Bo Nix was a little bit different. But what did Sean Payton do when he got to New Orleans? He got his quarterback, and he built the team from the trenches out. right? DJ Jones, Zach Allen, extending Quinn Miners, Ben Powers, Mike McGlinchey, now extending Garrett Bolles, John Franklin Myers. Look at the number of things the Broncos have done, either their offensive or defensive line. And that's Sean Payne. Sean Payne's mentioned it before. That's the way he wants to build. That's Bill Parcells. Those are the groceries that Bill Parcells has at the top of his shopping list. And we're seeing Sean Payton do it. Evaluate that position group, immediately bring in people to address the two offensive and defensive line, and making decisions to extend guys like Quinn Miners, like Garrett Bolles, because he feels good about it. So now you look at both sides of the line. Broncos are pretty set there. Right? If it's not going to be DJ Jones moving forward, they brought in Malcolm Roach this year. They brought in John Franklin Myers. They signed Zach Allen last year. They've done all this with the offensive line. Now that that's said, I think the direction that the Broncos go this offseason is pretty clear, don't you think? If Sean Payton's idea was to build from the trenches out, and now it's time for the guys outside of those trenches. Whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency. Now the Broncos are in a position where they can really look at adding weapons for Bolles. And I would say, we have the Heisman presentation on Saturday. Travis Hunter won AP Player of the Year, which I'll get into this later, is a pretty good indicator of who's going to win the Heisman. I don't know how they make it happen. Ashton Jeanty needs to be a Bronco. I think free agency, you could see the Broncos potentially landing. I know T. Higgins is the name that everyone brings in, but there will be other names. I saw a mock draft. Field Yates put out the tight end from Michigan, who he thinks would fit the Joker role for Sean Payton's offense very well. I think now that you have the offensive line set, and left tackle is not going to be an area of need for you this offseason. And I know there's Audric Estime. I get it. They just drafted him. If you could dream up the best case scenario for the Denver Broncos, given where they're going to draft, if Ashton Jeanty somehow makes it to them, I think they need to address the running back room. Julian McLaughlin has played well, but he's not the type of guy that's going to get a lot of carries. He's a change of pace guy. Well, who's the guy whose pace Jaleel McLaughlin is changing? And we've had these fits and starts with Audric Estime. He's in there one week, and it's like, okay, here we go. It's just a couple weeks ago. Audric Estime, it's his time now. And then we hardly saw him. I think the Broncos, I think you just can't forget the running back room in all of it. People are going to fixate on tight end. People are going to fixate on wide receiver. And I agree the Broncos should be looking out for both of those positions. But let's not forget, the way that Sean Payton built his team in New Orleans and is replicating that in Denver. Speaking of the Heisman Trophy, Mark Ingram was the draft pick of Sean Payton. Alvin Kamara. He values the running back position. I don't know if Genty's going to make it to the Denver Broncos, but if he's right around there, Broncos should be looking at him. In the first round. In the first round. Let me not mince my words on this, because some people will say, well, Ashton, and it will come up once we get into draft season. Oh, Ashton Genty's great, but you can't draft him in the first round. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. For a team that is going to make the postseason, okay, the rules are a little bit different. If you're trying to rebuild your team from scratch, like the Raiders, the Giants, the Jaguars, that, okay, yeah, running back in the first round doesn't seem like a great idea. But if the Broncos earn their way to the postseason, they're at a different stage of their rebuild. And they have their offensive line. They have their defensive line. They've already locked up Jonathan Cooper. Nick Benito's not going to be far behind. They have Pat Surtain. But I think overall, certainly the direction that the Broncos should be looking, and I think will be looking once the offseason rolls around, the draft, free agency, get the skill position players, get the toys, the sexy positions. That's what this offseason for the Denver Broncos, I think, is going to be. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts. Garrett Bolles extension. Where do you think the Broncos are now going to go? That left tackle is scratched off the list. Coming up next, Nuggets back in action tomorrow night against the LA Clippers. Michael Porter says the Nuggets definitely are aware of what's being said about them, and he thinks it's not a bad thing. Brett checks in on the text line. I'm glad Garrett Bolles is hold in on. Well done. We'll never forget what Garrett Bolles was to begin his career. But credit to him. He's turned it around. Brett adds, if we draft another Michigan tight end, I will sell my season tickets. You having Vietnam flashbacks of Jake Butt? Is that what we're is that the problem here? Michigan tight ends and the Denver Broncos? Not a good combination. This from the 719 on the Avs. You'll hear from Mackenzie Blackwood at the top of the hour. More from Mackenzie Blackwood at the top of the hour. From the 719, now if the Avs would stop the defensive end turnovers. Look, yes, they should do that. But the thing about Mackenzie Blackwood is that he gives the Avs a chance to play who they are. And at the end of the day, I mean, the Nuggets are a great example of this. The Avs in recent years are a great example of this. Like, yes, they always have to mind the defensive end. And if they're not buttoned up on the defensive end, then they aren't going to go as far as they'd like to. But the entire premise, the job description of the Avs goalie, make the saves you're supposed to make, but if you could bail us out once in a great while, we would greatly appreciate it. The Avs, their style of play, the personnel they have, there are going to be times where they turn the puck over. And I would agree, I think recently or this season in general, there's been too many of them, to your point. But this is always going to be a team that if there's one side of the ice, so to speak, end of the ice would be a better way to put it, that there are going to be breakdowns, it's going to be the defensive end. But they more than make up for it with what they do offensively. I'm sure Jared Bednar would want them to tighten it up a little bit. But that's going to be part of Blackwood's job. Make the saves you're supposed to make first and foremost. And if you can make one or two other saves that we go, whoa, that was a big time save. That's what Scott Wedgwood has been doing. It's what they need. They don't need it every night. They don't need it 5 times a night, but once or twice, if you could do that, they're all the better for it. Nuggets, because they didn't qualify for the NBA Cup semifinals, have had a few days off. They will finally be back in action tomorrow. Jamal Murray is, in Michael Malone's estimation, going to be questionable for tomorrow night. And while the Nuggets did end up bouncing back with the Atlanta game on Sunday, the image of the Washington game the night before is difficult to shake. And the more games the Nuggets can get in over the next couple of weeks, the better to put that Washington game further and further in the rearview mirror. The feeling around the Nuggets right now is not good. And it's just exacerbated by the fact that many who root for both the Avs and the Nuggets feel very positive about one team and by comparison feel very, very negative about the other. Michael Porter at practice today, I think with interesting perspective on that. Athletes try to act like they don't know what's being said about them. They absolutely do. I appreciate Michael Porter for acknowledging that. But I think that he has the right perspective given what the Denver Nuggets are going through right now. Take a listen.
I think that it's probably mirrored. Everyone sees what people are talking about. I feel like that affects, guys' level of even killedness here. I feel like but sometimes you need some tension and you need a wake-up call. So I feel like it's definitely been not peaches and roses the past couple weeks.
Peaches and roses. But I like that from Michael Porter. Like saying this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think what this team has dealt with over the past year plus, last year, this year, they have had to battle the sense of entitlement that comes along with being a champion. Right? That you don't understand how much teams are going to raise their level against you once you are a champion. You don't understand how difficult it is. In many ways, it's more difficult to repeat than to win a title initially. And the Nuggets have talked about it over the last year or so, but almost at every turn, we have found that they weren't ready for it across the board, top to bottom. Front office wasn't ready, hasn't been ready to deal with the feeding frenzy that would occur for anybody available on their roster, Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and have the right, plan B, I suppose, in place. Michael Malone in not realizing that you got to look at the bigger picture, and whether you are the 1 seed or the 3 seed, it's really not that big of a deal. You don't have to push for the number 1 seed. You've already established who you are. You don't need that seed. And the players as well. And I think right now, what the Nuggets are dealing with is they can't just turn it on anymore. Their roster is not as good as it was 2 years ago. They're not as good of a team as they were 2 years ago. That doesn't mean they can't win a title, but that means they can't. The Avs and the Nuggets, we have to understand that both of them, in many ways for that season, were juggernauts. And that manifested itself into people thinking that the Nuggets' path to a title was somehow weak. It wasn't. It wasn't an easy path. They were just that much better than everybody else. Avs the same way. They were so much better than everyone else. And I think that there's this feeling of, we'll turn it on. Don't worry, we'll turn it on. And what happened Saturday night, they didn't. They took it for granted. They never turned it on, and they got absolutely embarrassed. And sometimes in order to come to the realization that you're not as good as of a team as you were a couple years ago is to be embarrassed and to have a fan base and the media reacting like they are. To make this team understand that 2 years ago might as well be 20 years ago. Jamal Murray is not nearly the player he was 2 years ago. Christian Brown, as much as Calvin Booth wants to make him out to be the same as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he's not Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Reggie Jackson, now Russell Westbrook, not Bruce Brown. Doesn't mean they can't be good enough for the Nuggets to win a title, but they're not that. And you look around the locker room and you see a lot of the same faces and you just take for granted that you're the same team. You're not. So if Atlanta was the start of something, whether Washington was rock bottom or a wake-up call or whatever it was, Atlanta might be the start of something. And tomorrow night's going to be a fascinating matchup because the Clippers have gotten the best of the Nuggets. Clippers have been getting the best of the Nuggets this season. So in many ways, tomorrow night is a better indicator of the message sinking in, the Nuggets understanding the reality that faces them a little bit better. Tomorrow night's a better indicator than Atlanta. And they won't have Jamal Murray, more than likely. So good on Michael Porter. I know Michael Porter is everybody's favorite punching bag. I think that's starting to change. I think people are starting to realize that Michael Porter is doing what he gets paid to do. Shows up every day, has been the Nuggets' second best player this season, and he gets it. He gets it in a way that I don't know that I've heard everyone on the Nuggets team get it. Nuggets and Clippers tomorrow night. You can hear that game right here on Extra Sports 1300. In the meantime, take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. So I'm watching Sports Center, and I see Seth Wickersham on, and he had a piece today on ESPN.com about Bill Belichick taking the job at North Carolina. Belichick met with the media at North Carolina, and earlier I was joking about how Mackenzie Blackwood was pandering to Avs faithful a little bit with this line earlier today.
Hey, really excited because this is a really good hockey club, a lot of great players, great organization. It's first class all the way, so that's huge. And, this was my favorite team growing up, so, a little nostalgia there for me too, so very cool.
Favorite team growing up, and he gets to play for him. How cool is that? You ate it up. Well, Bill Belichick today drifted into LeBron James territory in terms of fibbing, saying that one of the stories that was always told in the Belichick family is that Billy's. Could you imagine if anybody called Bill Belichick Billy? And what would happen to a human being if they called Bill Belichick at this stage Billy? But apparently the running joke in the Belichick family was that Billy's first words were beat Duke. I call cap. There is no way. I'm sorry. I have raised 2 children. I have tried to get them to say so many things as their first words. I refuse to believe that Bill Belichick's father was able to succeed in that endeavor to make Bill Belichick's first words be beat Duke. I'm sorry. Bill Belichick is lying. And if that's not a red flag for you, North Carolina Tar Heels fans, I don't know what is. That is a bold-faced lie. There is no way Bill Belichick's first words were beat Duke. You notice that all of a sudden, like Bill Belichick always had this affinity for college. Isn't that something? Like, just notice, one, did anybody know that his dad coached at North Carolina? At any point in his career, did anybody mention that Bill Belichick's father coached at North Carolina? I mean, he did. It's a fact. But now this matters. He was an assistant coach for like 3 years. I always thought that Navy was the bigger connection for Bill Belichick, not North Carolina. And now all of a sudden, well, it was, his first words were beat Duke. How have I not heard this before? And now it's all about the legacy, right? My father coached here. I'll coach here. My son's going to coach here. It's about this great Belichick family legacy. I didn't even know till 72 hours ago that his dad ever coached at North Carolina. And I've consumed a lot of Bill Belichick content, as you have, over the past 20 years. Never once heard anything about North Carolina holding a special place in Bill Belichick's heart, to the point that his first words were beat Duke. And then in his statement yesterday, when he agrees to the 5-year deal, says he's always wanted to coach in college. Well, why didn't you go to college when you were fired by Cleveland? Right? That's what Pete Carroll did. Right? Why was it that? You stuck around and you went to the Patriots. He's always wanted to coach in college. Beat Duke, always wanted to coach in college. The Belichick family legacy at North Carolina. All of this just all of a sudden is a little too convenient, if you ask me. I find getting back to Seth Wickersham, because that's where all this began. Seth Wickersham's piece, and I highly recommend because Seth Wickersham is a great writer, and he's done great job covering that Patriots dynasty. Couple of quotes from Belichick confidants. It was because, in the words of a confidant, Belichick is, quote, disgusted in what he believes the NFL had become. This is a big FU to the NFL. Another Belichick confidant says. That I can get behind. That I can believe. This always wanting to coach in college and beat Duke being his first words, and now this great Belichick family legacy at the University of North Carolina. I don't buy that. I buy this. That sounds like the Bill Belichick I know. Which it's funny, too, if that is the reason. Didn't the NFL say F you to Belichick before Bill Belichick was able to say that to the NFL? I mean, really, like who told, and I'll stop repeating because it's a family show, but who told that to whom first? I believe it was a pretty resounding bleep you from the NFL to Belichick, and then proceeded to be a bleep you from Robert Kraft, who allegedly torpedoed Bill Belichick's chances of getting a job in the NFL, and he diminished Bill Belichick's impact on the Patriot dynasty in that documentary that came out. Pretty sure the NFL and the Patriots and Robert Kraft told Bill Belichick that before Bill Belichick did this. And also, I know it feels good to say something like that. I try, just so you know a little bit about me, I try to say that to one person every day of my life. Because it just feels good to say it. And it's not even going to be anybody that I have an axe to grind with. I just feel like getting out those words directed at another person empowers me as a human being. But can you really say it? Can this be that to the NFL? The NFL didn't want him. At least this go around. So I feel like, and it's, you know, when you consider the source here, Belichick confidants, they're going to speak from a pro-Belichick perspective. They're going to have their guys back. So they're going to characterize it as Bill Belichick doesn't want the NFL, not that the NFL doesn't want Belichick, even though this past coaching cycle, it became pretty clear that at the very least, the NFL does not pine for Bill Belichick. If they even want him at all. Who knows what this cycle would have turned out to be. And apparently he saw the Chicago job as the best job available. Duh. But they're going to go offensive coach, which they should. But it doesn't mean any of it. Like, I get it. All of this, the grandstanding, the pandering, all this kind of stuff, I understand. I get it. It's what you do in these situations. You try to take the power back. You try to make it seem like you're in control. And then you show up in this new place and you want to. And I thought Belichick came across borderline folksy today. Now we'll see how long this holds up. right? Part of the reason why, and I talked about this yesterday, part of the reason why I don't think it will work out to the extent that North Carolina is going to be competing for the college football playoff year in and year out, and this isn't going to quite work the same way that Deion Sanders has worked in Boulder, is because there will be a time where Belichick becomes Coach Belichick. Today was Bill. Today, dare I say, was Billy. Billy Belichick. And I know he has it in him. It's not fake, but it's just not how he prefers to operate. His normal position as a head coach is to mumble and to ignore, avoid questions and to not demean reporters, but just dismiss what they have to say and all of this kind of stuff. I feel like that's going to come out, and I don't know. The Bill Belichick I saw today, I just don't see him sustaining it. But that's part of the genius of Bill Belichick. And we talk about this with Greg Popovich too. Like the behavior of Greg Popovich over the years would not be acceptable for most everybody in the coaching profession. The way he is with the sideline interviews and all that kind of stuff. How outspoken he is. Not many coaches could pull that off. But when you have this perception of you being a genius and you being one of the greatest to ever do it, people allow, it's like rich people, and I think this is a line from a comedian or somebody, but like rich people are never crazy. They're only eccentric. Like the respect that we give people who have achieved something, the latitude, the rope we give them because they are successful, it's really quite something. But if many of the same behaviors were perpetrated by somebody who is not wealthy, we would not put up with it. If some of the things that Bill Belichick does as a coach were done by Nathaniel Hackett. Oh, you think he got killed when he was super friendly and everybody's buddy in Denver a couple years ago? What if he would have been like Belichick? It would have been worse. Guy mumbling through his game plan for Sunday and dismissing reporters' questions. That wouldn't fly. So Bill Belichick's going to regress to the mean here. Could we see, I think the best you can hope for is there's some kind of meeting in the middle. Not quite what he was in New England, but also understanding that he can't keep up what he is on the Pat McAfee show or the Manning cast or even what he was today in his opening press conference. He can't sustain that when he's so maniacally focused on beating UCF or Virginia that week. And that's how long is that going to do? Deion Sanders keeps this up. He's like this all the time. He never turns it off. The charms, the quip, the sayings, all that, he never turns it off. He's always that way. Because it's who he is. Good on Belichick for making a good first impression, because I thought he did. And I think this can work. I think it could be successful. It just depends on what your definition of success is. Is North Carolina doing this to win a national championship? Because I don't think they're going to achieve it. Can they be in a better spot moving forward than they have been? 3 bowl wins over 20 years? Yeah. beat Duke. That is a lie. Cap. Learn that from LeBron. Fibbing like that. Like harmless. In the end, it's harmless. Right? It's not George O'Leary lying on his resume. But that's all of LeBron's things that the magic of social media has combined together to showcase. And it's amazing to watch. I highly recommend it. If you have social media, find a video of just all of LeBron James just lying. But it's all about, it's all little things. That's like, it's harmless, but it's like, we know you're lying. There's no way Belichick's first words were beat Duke. No way. This is not a lie, what I'm about to tell you. It's science. It's medical fact. Courtesy of the good folks at QC Kinetics. Don't start the new year with the same joint pain that's been bothering you all of 2024. Take action now to get the pain relief you deserve. Their local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are waiting for you. Their advanced protocols in regenerative medicine have helped tens of thousands of people get lasting relief because they treat the root cause of that joint pain. And they do it using the healing properties of your own body. It's the future of medicine, and they have tens of thousands of patients that are raving about their results across America, and many of them right here in Southern Colorado. If you've been told surgery is your best or only option, you deserve a second opinion. Call QC Kinetics. The consultation is free. 719-347-1988. 719-347-1988. Live your best life in 2025 with QC Kinetics. 719-347-1988. Hello there. Welcome in to a Thursday edition of Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you. Pleasure to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. Bottom of the hour, our coverage of Thursday Night Football. Good matchup on paper, consequential matchup on paper. LA Rams 1 game back in the NFC West against the 49ers, 2 games back in the NFC West in a division that I think is only going to get one playoff team. Our coverage from Westwood One starts at the bottom of the hour, and that also means it's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. With craveable wings, ice cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world famous Hooters girls, it is the #1 franchise in the league. Right now, it is time for the 3 stories that are driving the show. All right, we start story number 1, a big payday for a very large human being.
I had to prove myself. It was a new coaching staff, and I knew Coach Payton and the way that he has a certain way about players and certain offensive schemes, and I had to adjust some things. And over the years, it always takes a little bit of people to love me and to fall in love with me, and I just have to trust that process. And the good Lord always had a plan for me, and it's for me to be here in Denver.
That is Broncos left tackle Garrett Bolles, who today agreed to a 4-year, $82 million contract extension. And I applaud the self-awareness. The entire career of Garrett Bolles has been about, it takes a little while to fall in love with Garrett Bolles. He looked like he was going to be another swing and a miss on a first rounder by John Elway. And then when he was due for an extension, he got the best teacher he could possibly get in Mike Munchak. And we saw the best of Garrett Bolles. We saw a transformed Garrett Bolles, and it earned him a second contract. But to earn a third, he was going to have to impress a man that we have come to find is very difficult to impress, and that is Sean Payton. Sean Payton took care of Quinn Meinerz, brought in McGlinchey, brought in Powers, paid them handsomely, addressed other positions, and let Garrett Bolles come into the season not knowing whether he would be a Bronco after this upcoming season. I think Sean Payton could have gone either way with Garrett Bolles. I think he was good enough that Sean Payton didn't feel like he needed to make an immediate change. But I think Sean Payton absolutely was thinking that this would be the last year of Garrett Bolles. Or at least the last year of Garrett Bolles if he didn't meet his standard or become the fit for what he wants to do on his offensive line. But Garrett Bolles has proven to be that, and he, along with this group, have been one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and a big reason, although it is rarely talked about, of why Bo Nix is having the season he's having. And now you look at what the Broncos have under contract. They have their quarterback. They have their offensive line. They have their defensive line. They're locking up their pass rushers. They have Pat Surtain. Now it's going to be about the skill guys. Running back, tight end, wide receiver. This is if you're really into fantasy football and like look at free agent signings and draft picks to see who might be good on your fantasy team, you'll like the Broncos offseason, because I think they are going to load up on those type of players, guys that can help you win your fantasy league, guys that can help Bo Nix take the next step in his development. Sean Payne always said he wants to build from the inside out, from the trenches out, and now he's done that on both sides of the football. Now it's going to be time this offseason, whenever that may be, whether it's after the regular season, after Wild Card Weekend, or some point past that, for the Broncos to start adding skill position players to go along with the foundation he has built on the offensive and defensive lines. But Garrett Bowles, 4 years, $82 million extension, will be a Denver Bronco for the foreseeable future. Now to somebody that the Avalanche hope will be an Av for the foreseeable future, because he deserves to be. Here is story number 2.
You're not going to have, those spectacular nights every single night, but as long as you're bringing a B game at the worst, right? So you can win with a B game if your B game is good enough, right? So I think that's what I've been working on a lot over the last little bit. You're obviously going to have your great nights, and those are fantastic, but when you're not your best, like, what do you still have? So if you're on an off night and you can still get the job done, that's kind of what you're looking for, right?
Right. That is Mackenzie Blackwood, the newest member of the Colorado Avalanche. He will not start tonight. It will be another Scott Wedgwood evening against the Utah Hockey Club. But so often when a player is acquired, we get fixated and look at the upside. What can Mackenzie Blackwood be at his best? Really, what this is about, what these moves have been about, with the Avalanche being one of the rare teams to completely swap out their goalie room before Christmas, is about what they are at their worst. What is Scott Wedgwood when he's off his game? What does Mackenzie Blackwood look like when he doesn't quite have it? Is that floor lower than what Annunen and Georgiev were given the Avs? That's what we should be more interested in as more games happen for Scott Wedgwood, and when Mackenzie Blackwood gets in there and starts playing. What is their floor? How much will the Avalanche have to bail these two guys out? Well, with Wedgwood, so far they haven't had to. In fact, Wedgwood has bailed out the Avs more than the Avs have bailed him out. We know that's not going to continue. There are going to be nights where Wedgwood doesn't have it, where the Avs are going to have to bail him out. But what does that look like? Is that chasing a 4-goal deficit midway through the first period? Or is that, being down 3-1 in the second period going into the third period? That's a floor that the Avs can manage. They could not deal with the floor for Annunen and Georgiev. It was too low. And the consistency of it, also part of this. The floor and the ceiling not being that far apart. That's what they're looking for from Mackenzie Blackwood. And next chance for him to make his debut would be against Nashville. We'll see if that happens, but it will be Scott Wedgwood tonight against Utah Hockey Club at 7 o'clock. Now here's story number 3.
First down and 10 to the 23-yard line. Shador takes a snap. He throws this one towards the end zone. Fighting for it. Up with the football. Touchdown. Touchdown, Colorado. In a season of improbable plays, you just saw one of the greatest catches you're ever going to see.
Mark Johnson of Learfield on the call today. Travis Hunter received 26 of a possible 43 votes to become AP College Football Player of the Year. And with the Heisman ceremony coming up on Saturday, I did a little digging. The AP started their award in 1998. And it was off to a rough start because in 2000, 2001, and 2002, the AP Player of the Year and the Heisman Trophy winner were two different people. In 2000, the AP Player of the Year was Josh Heupel, then of Oklahoma. The Heisman, of course, went to Chris Winkie. I was thinking of the Teletubby when I did that. Yeah, Chris Winkie was the Heisman Trophy winner that year. 2001, AP's like Rex Grossman. That's our guy. Heisman committee was like, nope, it's Eric Crouch. 2002, AP voted Brad Banks. Remember Brad Banks of Iowa? He was the AP Player of the Year. Heisman Trophy went to Carson Palmer. But since then, it has been extremely rare that the AP and the Heisman Committee vote differently. In fact, since the year 2003, 2 decades, there's only been 2 years where the AP and the Heisman did not see eye to eye. 2009, the AP voted Ndamukong Suh as the Player of the Year, and the Heisman went to Mark Ingram. And then in the last time it happened was 2015. You remember this well. Christian McCaffrey was the AP Player of the Year. Derrick Henry won the Heisman. And that was very, very contested. Remember, that was the year where we all accused East Coast bias. Nobody stayed up late enough to see Christian McCaffrey. AP voters apparently did. Heisman Trophy winners did not. 2015 was the last time, and that is just one of 2 times in the last 2 decades that the AP Player of the Year did not win the Heisman. Travis Hunter's going to win the Heisman. I don't even need the AP to tell me that. I already know that. But history will tell you that this is another sign that Travis Hunter will win the Heisman on Saturday. But here's the other part of it that I don't fully understand. I saw a headline that Travis Hunter edged Ashton Genty in the voting. Maybe I'm missing out on something. 26 of 43 votes is a close vote. 26-16. It feels like a pretty wide margin. And I'm asking because I have to calibrate this. So when the voting comes out, because I've been saying I don't think it's going to be that close between Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. Is this not a decisive victory? 60%. Travis Hunter got 60% of the vote. Ashton Genty got 37% of the vote. I know it's a smaller sample size, but isn't that a decisive victory? I mean, you go back to November, Donald Trump got 58% of the Electoral College, and wasn't that considered a blowout? Wasn't that the way people characterized our presidential election last month? Trump got 58% of the vote. Travis Hunter got 60%. Now, Electoral College. 60% to me is a decisive victory. It wasn't a razor-thin margin. 26-16, and then Scatabo got 1 vote. Always that one, right? That's one thing I will say. I don't think Travis Hunter will be a unanimous Heisman Trophy selection. Maybe I need to calibrate what my definition of a a margin of victory. What's a large margin? I thought that I saw 26 of 43 votes. He got 26. Ashton Genty got 16. I'm like, that's a decisive win. Nope. Headlines say just ekes it out, edges him out. Doesn't seem like that to me. That's like 3 votes difference. That's eking 3 votes. But history will tell you that this is just another sign that Travis Hunter will be hoisting the Heisman Trophy in New York come Saturday. Take your thoughts on the 3 stories that are driving the show. 719-247-1313. Back after traffic. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and we want to make it even better with $1,000 towards your winter wish list. Use it for holiday shopping, travel, or to treat yourself. Enter this national contest on extrasports1300.com for a chance to fulfill your winter wish list, sponsored locally by Downtown Colorado Springs and Downtown CS.com. Earlier, I was discussing the Seth Wickersham piece on ESPN.com about Bill Belichick's motivations to become a college coach and how I think that some of the things that have been presented from Belichick in North Carolina are a little, I call cap. But when Seth Wickersham comes out and quotes Bill Belichick's confidants and basically saying that Bill Belichick is using this job at North Carolina in part, I'm not saying it's his whole motivation, nor is this piece suggesting that, but part of this is sending a bleep you to the NFL. I don't want you. I'm tired of you. And I believe that Belichick feels that way. Now, as I'm discussing this, I say, I did extol the virtues of saying such words on an everyday basis to random people and how good it will make you feel. And Brett on the text line did not bleep anything out and told me, bleep you, Ryan, and said, I do feel better. See? It works. And I know you know that I did nothing to deserve that, but but it's exactly what I said earlier. It just empowers you to say that to people. Even if those people either did nothing wrong or they don't even care. Right? And that's my point with Belichick. He may be saying bleep you to the NFL. I think the NFL already said that to him. Right? So I don't know that it's as powerful as Belichick wants to make it be, but if it makes him feel better, then more power to him. Same with Brett. Although I got to say, Brett, that I'm about to do something that will make you say, bleep you, Ryan, because I am going to discuss LeBron James right now. Just got to get to this before I send you off to Thursday Night Football. LeBron James is away from the Lakers. And I'm using this as a way, if you are a Nuggets fan, to say it could be worse. Imagine if Nikola Jokic just up and left the team. That would be quite bad, wouldn't it? Well, that's what's happening to the Lakers. Their best player, and make no mistake about it, their best player, even at 39 3/4 years old, is still LeBron James. He's gone. And of course, I don't expect anything less from JJ Redick than to say it's fine that he does that. And everybody's saying it's okay, it's fine. And there's even historical precedent that LeBron has set. In 2014, LeBron James left the Cleveland Cavaliers for 2 weeks. The reason, he was dealing with knee and back issues. The team was struggling a little bit. And he was, according to some reporting that had been done at the time, was kind of moping around. And he ended up leaving the team for a couple of weeks. When he returned, he was refreshed mentally and physically, and he went on to lead the Cavs to the second seed in the Eastern Conference that year. So LeBron's done this before, and it's worked. And I got to imagine that is the impetus of him doing this, right? LeBron James is banged up, and he is having to carry the Lakers roster on his shoulders, including Anthony Davis. I am tired of separating Anthony Davis. He is in with the lot of them. LeBron James is their best player, and he's carrying everyone else on the Lakers. And it's not something that a 39-year-old should be doing. There are only a couple of situations where I remember that a team had success with a 39-year-old player being their best player. The other one was the team Tom Brady was on when he was 39. And it speaks to how remarkable it is that LeBron James is doing this, because it's not just that he's the tallest toddler here, that he's the best of a bad bunch. He's playing at an all-star level at 39 years old. The problem is no one else is. And he's dealing with some injuries. And so I think he's looking at it much the same way he looked at that spell in 2014 where he said, I'm going to get away. And yes, it's special treatment for LeBron. No doubt about that. But it served him well in the past. And I think that's what he's going to try and do here. The problem is twofold. One, the Cavaliers that year, that was the first year LeBron went back to Cleveland. They were a better team than these Lakers are. Second, obviously, I guess it's three reasons. Second, he's 39, right? Are his ailments going to improve that much? And three, back then, he had just signed with Cleveland. He was back and he was this conquering hero returning home, and Colin Cowherd got all teary-eyed when he read the letter and all that kind of stuff. Now, LeBron's name is being thrown around in trade rumors. It's a little bit different. And I have no doubt that LeBron James is doing this to send a message to the Lakers, because this is what he does. He does these things to send a message. Even back then with Cleveland, with a better team. You know, they traded Andrew Wiggins the minute LeBron agreed to go there to get Kevin Love. They had a good team. And yet, about the time LeBron left, they made some trades. This is LeBron doing LeBron things. It is ridiculous that he has to carry this team, but also it's a bed of his own making. When you make your organization focus on J.J. Redick and Bronny as their top two off-season items, they are not prioritizing the right things. Getting Trae Young would be better than getting Bronny or J.J. Redick. But the organization was focused on J.J. Redick and Bronny, and they didn't improve the roster. And they just happened to luck into Dalton Connect. So part of me says, I don't want LeBron to get traded. Like, I admire him as a player immensely. But like, you did this. The pressure you should have been putting on your team should have been like, no, don't worry about drafting my son. If that happens, awesome. And certainly in the second round, you could try for that. And keep Darvin Ham as the coach. Don't worry about all this. Keep Darvin Ham as the coach and go out and get me a third guy that can help me win. So I know what he's doing. He's pouting. That's what LeBron James is doing, because he's done it before. And the Lakers will probably do something. But why do you think they're in this predicament, that they're leaning on a 39-year-old player to solve all of their problems? Because that 39-year-old player made their focus his podcast partner and his son. So we'll see when LeBron James decides to grace the Lakers with his presence. I will grace you with my presence or whatever the opposite of that is, tomorrow at 3. In the meantime, enjoy Thursday Night Football. Should be a good one. Rams, Niners now.